SMC-M pays $5,408.55 monthly. It isn't the 100% rate. Professor Antonov is here to test the function rules behind that number. Erica, put the rate on solid ground. Stay with us, because one independent disability can move M up exactly half a step, and we'll price that jump.
$5,408.55 is the 2026 SMC-M rate for a veteran alone. It became effective December 1st of 2025. With a spouse and no parents or children, the row is $5,628.14. Those are published SMC rows, not estimates.
Last episode, we finished our rating ladder. Now it reaches SMC, where the number gets bigger and the legal path gets much narrower.
The version going around says, get to 100%, then add SMC-M. Verdict. Busted. 5 narrow paths control M. It isn't a loyalty point you redeem after maxing out the rating scale.
SMC-M is a statutory compensation level. The award must rest on one of the qualifying combinations in Title 38, Section 3.350, subsection C. Those combinations include loss or loss of use at specified levels and particular blindness paths.
Where this is going, the forward move isn't chasing the biggest label. It's matching the evidence to the exact legal doorway and then checking the payment row.
Treat the designation and its basis as different fields. The designation tells you what table to read. The basis tells you why VA selected it. If the decision identifies M but the medical record discusses a different functional loss, that mismatch deserves a careful review, not an assumption about the outcome.
Here's the ruling. Both rows can matter. I mean, the spouse-only household row and spouse aid and attendance addition answer 2 questions. One recognizes family status. The other is a table amount tied to the spouse's need for aid and attendance. A decision can get one right and the other wrong.
That's why I'd never project somebody else's published SMC-M spouse row of $5,628.14 onto my own future budget. Open the current VA table first. A parent or child changes the row. A spouse can change it too. Another lawful addition changes it again. The public number is a coordinate, not a personal forecast.
Trust that table before the post saying SMC-M equals exactly this check for everyone. It's half true at best. The veteran alone number is exact, but household facts and permitted additions still matter.
A reliable audit therefore asks 4 separate questions. What establishes the M level? Which household row applies? Is an intermediate elevation stated? Is any additional award legally independent? Keep those questions separate until the final arithmetic.
Shortcut. No. Verdict. The headline is true. The shortcut is false. Correct $sign. Missing entire regulation.
Straight version, a 100% rating alone doesn't qualify. Eligibility comes through the statutory facts. Then VA selects the current household row and any lawful additions.
VAProfessorErica.com has free guides to organize the decision and the question.
What are the 5 legal paths to SMC-M?
5 doors. 5 doors with exact wording and no folklore. Coming up, we'll test what counts as loss of use. One thing before the next part, and then we move right on. If any of this is clicking, tap that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for the next one. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it helps more than you would think. Five doors. Miss the doorway, and the $5,408 headline does nothing.
The controlling list is in Title 38, Section 3.350, subsection C. Tiffany, on VA's current SMC page, open the SMC-M row before comparing your facts.
Door 1. Anatomical loss or loss of use of both hands.
Door 1 was both hands. Door 2 is both legs when natural knee action is prevented.
Door 3 combines one arm and one leg at the specified elbow and knee levels.
Doors 4 and 5 are blindness paths, not generic low vision labels.
One blindness path is both eyes with only light perception.
The other is qualifying blindness requiring regular aid and attendance.
5. Not very disabled, not probably M. 5 written routes.
The hand's root can be anatomical loss or loss of use. This fine motor task doesn't decide a claim, it shows why remaining function must be described as observable action.
The leg's root adds a specified natural knee action standard.
The arm plus leg root tracks both joints.
That wording prevents us from flattening every mobility limitation into the same category.
Let me test the map. 1 hand plus 1 foot. My prediction is no SMC-M, because that pair isn't one of the 5.
Correct. The listed limb combinations are both hands, both legs under the knee action standard, or one arm with one leg at the specified levels. That's the boundary. The root applies only if the named combination matches.
So, now change the foot to one leg meeting the knee standard, but keep one hand instead of one arm. Does that root open?
No. The rule still blocks it. The arm-leg root applies only if the pair is one arm and one leg at those levels.
Watch the clinician compare suspension systems and seat one on the residual limb. The clip has one setup cut, but the visible action is about prosthesis fit. Useful joint action matters, but why call these?
Hold on. Why call them doors?
Because each path opens the same row through distinct facts.
Back to the map. Same M row, different proof. The entire point.
5 statutory paths.
If you're half listening while folding laundry, send this to anyone calling M the next percentage. 5 paths, not 1%.
The studio chat just pushed the harder question. Does a prosthesis automatically defeat loss of use?
No. The rule compares remaining effective function with what a suitable prosthesis would provide.
Professor Antonov is back with us after separating the designation from its basis. Now he won't let us confuse anatomy with function.
Someone can still have a limb and meet a loss of use standard. That sounds contradictory until you read the test.
Loss of use asks whether effective function remains beyond what an amputation stump with a suitable prosthesis would provide. Buttoning clothing makes grasping and manipulation visible, but the task itself doesn't decide the legal result.
For a hand, the regulation names grasping and manipulation. Call it the comparison rather than the vibe.
For a foot, it names balance and propulsion. Leo, finish the joint level piece.
For the M leg and arm roots, natural knee or elbow action with a proper prosthesis matters.
Begin with an activity, not a diagnosis label. For the hands, ask what grasping and pinching remain, then test turning and fastening with a suitable prosthetic device. For the feet and legs, ask about balance and propulsion, record transfers and useful joint action with the proper prosthesis in place. Connect each observation to the exact regulatory path. A painful task isn't automatically absent ability. A device being present isn't automatically effective performance. The record must describe what the person can truly do safely and repeatedly.
I was going to say any prosthesis ends the inquiry. No. The regulation rejects that shortcut.
The proper prosthesis comparison is part of the inquiry. I mean, the device is evidence. It doesn't answer the test by existing. Before we get to the stacking receipt, hold on to that distinction.
Antonov, what should a future exam document besides the equipment list?
Separate endurance from existence. A movement performed once under ideal conditions may not describe useful daily ability. The examiner should record assistance and safety. Repetition, pain, and device effectiveness belong in the note too. The clinician need not leap to the legal conclusion.
Consider a hand that can close around a foam ball once in a clinic but can't fasten clothing or turn a key. It may not hold utensils safely or repeat the movement. The single motion matters, but it doesn't answer the entire grasp and manipulation comparison. The file needs the full task pattern.
Now consider the reverse. Someone may need an adaptive device and still retain reliable real-world function beyond the prosthetic comparison. The accommodation shows how the task is performed. It isn't a verdict in either direction.
Equipment use isn't a win or a loss. It starts a better question. What can the person do with it? How safely and how often?
I can't speak to an award from this clip. Watch the stair sequence for observable balance and propulsion, then check safety and repeatability. The examiner documents the actions and limits. The adjudicator applies the legal standard.
The chat found the premise hiding underneath this. If a device helps at all, is the claim over?
I would start cautiously. No. The standard compares usable function. Partial help is evidence, not an automatic verdict.
That raises the stakes for the file. The next question is what the evidence actually shows. Partial help isn't an automatic verdict. The SMC-M vision paths require separate proof too.
2 blindness routes. Keep them separate.
Route 1 is blindness in both eyes with only light perception. That wording is far narrower than simply having serious low vision.
A white cane or screen reader can show real daily context. Neither object proves.
A cane equals the award? Busted.
Route 2 is qualifying blindness in both eyes that leaves the claimant so helpless as to need regular aid and attendance. The record must establish both the visual condition and the assistance need, so the matrix has 2 columns: what vision remains and what regular personal assistance is actually required.
Run the 2 paths separately before combining the evidence.
Erica, can a diagnosis name fill those boxes?
Exactly, and this is where the record becomes useful. Start with ophthalmology findings plus visual acuity and field evidence. Put functional assessments in a second group. Keep aid and attendance evidence in a third. Separate questions are safer than one buried narrative.
For the aid and attendance route, daily help should be described as actual assistance. State who helps and with which personal functions. Add how often the help occurs. Explain what happens without it. A generic sentence that someone needs support hides the frequency and the task.
Independence isn't a punishment. Watch the cane detect the broken sidewalk edge and redirect the walk. Training doesn't erase the underlying visual findings. The legal record still has to establish the SMC-M threshold.
Correct. Good rehabilitation can increase safety and autonomy. It doesn't rewrite the medical measurements. The legal task is to apply the published criteria to the complete record, including real functioning with those supports.
The hopeful part is this: Braille skills and stronger proof can coexist. The claim doesn't need a helpless caricature. It needs accurate findings and an honest account of what regular assistance remains necessary. I like that because it's auditable. One claim can be emotionally overwhelming. 2 defined questions are something a claimant and representative can actually check.
Proof first. Assumption 0.
That finding creates the occasion for the next move. Build a function file that answers the rule in the language of the evidence. The 2-question vision check gives us the filing method. Organize every record around the function the regulation asks about.
A thick chart isn't automatically a strong chart. The useful file makes the decision maker's comparisons visible.
Function first. Labels second.
Start with diagnosis and service connection records, but don't stop there. They establish the condition and its relationship to service. They may not establish the remaining function.
Daily task evidence belongs in the 4th of 5 folders. The first holds diagnosis and service connection, the second holds current examinations plus therapy findings. The third keeps prosthetic evaluations distinct. The 5th records regular assistance. In each folder, mark the exact action being measured and the legal question it answers. Then make a 1-page index that sends each question to the best page. The index doesn't argue harder. It makes the evidence easier to.
But a diagnosis proves severity. Daily task evidence tests what the diagnosis doesn't. Remaining function on the SMC-M route.
Keep losses and assistance needs distinct. Diagnosis alone, insufficient.
For hands, a therapy note can document fastening and turning. It can add grasping and fatigue. For legs, gait, and prosthetic findings can document balance and propulsion. They can also describe transfers and useful joint action.
A useful lay statement names a task and the assistance or device involved. It records the result and the pattern over time. My hands are bad is sincere but vague. I drop a fork after several minutes and need help fastening buttons most mornings gives the examiner something observable to address.
No symptom thesaurus. Real tasks, real frequency, real help.
The same discipline applies to therapy records. Ask for measurements and task descriptions that already exist in the clinical encounter. Don't ask a clinician to predict a legal award. The strongest future-proof note stays accurate even if the designation changes.
Finally, preserve the unfavorable facts. If one activity improved with a new prosthesis, include it. A file that acknowledges improvement and still explains the remaining limitations is more trustworthy than a packet pretending every day is identical.
Daily assistance belongs in its own evidence lane. Feeding help is one visible example. The record still has to identify the helper, name the task, and give the frequency.
For blindness, keep the visual findings separate from the evidence showing regular aid and attendance. Similar pages may serve different legal questions.
No copying a stranger's symptoms from a forum. The record needs this claimant's actual function.
A clean file may show the award is correct. That's a useful result too. The audit is for accuracy, not automatic escalation.
With the basis clear, the next desk can do the arithmetic without mixing replacement rates and lawful additions.
Professor Antonov is still with us for the M.5 arithmetic because stacking can turn clean evidence into dirty math.
The viral version says add every SMC label you can find. Busted before the calculator even wakes up.
M.5 is the next intermediate row. Under this year's veteran alone table, M pays $5,408.55. M.5 pays $5,780, which is $371.45 above M. Now put the two rows on one receipt.
That SMC-M half step is $371.45 more per month because a distinct permanent 50% rule is why independent matters.
Wait, Erica. The extra disability can't duplicate M.
A distinct permanent disability rated 50% can support the next half step. It can't duplicate the condition establishing M.
The phrase separate and distinct does real work. Ask whether the additional disability involves different anatomical segments or bodily systems and whether it's independent of the conditions supporting M. The elevation can't carry the rate above SMC-O. This isn't ordinary combined rating arithmetic, it's a specific SMC elevation rule.
That shorthand is tempting. I mean, the regulation describes the 50% disability as permanent and distinct. Don't reduce that to another 50 somewhere.
Bonus math. No, it's classification math.
Permitted SMC-K awards have their own lane. VA says 1 to 3 may be added to basic SMC when each qualifying loss is additional. The cap and exceptions still apply.
Don't count the same loss twice, once to establish M and again as an additional K. The award code and the stated basis should show whether the K loss is genuinely additional.
Dependent rows are different again. A spouse-only M row is a dependent status rate. If the spouse receives aid and attendance, the current M table addition is $201.41 when applicable.
Consider Dana, a 68-year-old Army veteran whose decision states SMC-M and a separate qualifying 50% elevation. Use this year's veteran alone rows. The worksheet starts at $5,408.55 and moves to $5,780. That $371.45 difference is the intermediate step, not a second disability check added beside M.
If Dana also has a truly additional SMC-K loss, analyze that under the K rule. If the same loss already established M, don't count it again. Then select Dana's actual household row. The sequence protects each classification from contaminating the next.
Erica, what goes wrong if M and K share one column with spouse money?
The award code first audit wins. A calculator can expose a mismatch, but it can't prove the classifications are lawful. Read the designation and basis, confirm the household, then calculate. For a disputed or unclear award, an accredited representative is stronger than a homemade stacking theory.
Distinct lanes, replacement level, permitted K, family additions.
Professor Antonov, thank you for keeping the columns clean. I printed the decision letter, so which line proves the half step?
Start the award audit with the intermediate level itself, M.5, not a handwritten total beside M.
Yeah, I printed the decision letter, 4 pages, and I'm flipping to the code and date section, not staring at the deposit.
Audit 5 lines. First, the SMC level and any intermediate half step. Then check the effective date and recognize dependents. Finish with each K award or spouse aid in attendance edition.
5 lines, 1 checklist.
Don't let a screenshot reorder that audit. The designation and effective date control before the deposit amount can make sense.
Designation first. Deposit last.
Half step rather than a second check. The add-on I promised works only when the distinct disability elevation rule is met.
Promise kept, exception attached. The elevation can't go above SMC-O, and the row difference isn't.
Does that row difference always hold?
It's this year's veteran alone difference between those 2 rows. Household status and lawful additions can change the final payment.
Does always mean every M.5 award?
No, I mean the sharper answer is this. $371.45 is the current veteran alone row difference. Your actual award must use your recognized household and additions.
Yeah, on my paper, I circle the designation and underline the effective date. I write the household row beside the payment. Then I reconcile each addition once.
That file is challengeable. I like it.
The bureaucracy has achieved columns.
This generic document is only the audit gesture, the actual VA decision controls. Compare that decision with the current VA table. If the code or date doesn't reconcile, stop. Do the same for the family row and additions. Ask VA or an accredited representative which line controls before assuming underpayment.
When you compare, use the table effective for the payment period you're auditing. The current figures took effect December 1st of 2025. An older decision may span prior tables, so a current rate can't be pasted backward across every month of an effective date calculation.
Accurate screenshot. No, the number can be accurate and still belong to the wrong month. Date the table before you trust the subtraction.
If VA changed the level during the period, build a row for each effective date instead of averaging the deposits. Use 1 column for the designation and 1 for the recognized family row. Add a column for additions and another for the amount actually paid.
Keep the medical evidence dispute separate from a payment arithmetic dispute. The first asks whether the legal level is correct. The second asks whether VA paid the correct amount for the level already awarded. Different questions may require different evidence and different review steps.
After you split those questions, you're no longer staring at a mysterious deposit. You have a specific issue you can document, so you can take it to the appropriate office. Walk away with this. Audit the award code before the deposit, $371.45. Current veteran alone half step.
If this helped you separate SMC-M from the add-ons, like the video and subscribe for the next SMC rung. Tell us in the comments, which award line comes first, designation or date, household or additions? Keep the decision close, keep the math honest, and we will see you at the next rung.